Thank you very much. And that was Northern Dollies. Just remember, they're Blackburn based, they're still local, and that was just brilliant. And just to change the tempo a little bit now, we're going to introduce our next performer. He's a British South Asian writer, a teacher. He's an artist from Nelson, here in Lancashire. His creative practice revolves around intersections of culture and heritage, place and community, and also individual and plural identity. So there's a lot going on there, and you'll probably see that through his poetry. He's been longlisted and shortlisted for literary prizes, most notably the Nature Writing Prize in 2023 and the Mono Poetry Prize again in 2023. He's been commissioned to produce poetry and short stories for arts and cultural organizations around the world. And his actual writing was actually featured in the Nelson Library quite recently. Please welcome Ajaz Qureshi.
Hello everyone, thank you very much. So as was mentioned, my name is Ajaz Qureshi and I am from Nelson, like many of you today are from Nelson. So just before I start, I'd just like you to say something for me and repeat after me, because one of the people that did do this project is building bridges and the other is in situ. And they have a little program called This is Nelson. And I would just like all of you to say, if possible, this is Nelson. So please, can I have that from you? This is Nelson. Yes, and we all belong here. So thank you for all coming here today, because by you coming here today, it makes the culture exactly what it is. So I'm going to perform some of my poetry today. And the first one that I'm going to give you is something that I want you to take with you when I finish this today. So when you come to a map, when you come to any kind of map in a town centre or anything in a tourist kind of sign, you normally see a big circle on that sign and it says something like, "You are here." So that's what I'm going to talk about. You are here. That's all that matters on this map. Here, a place and a moment, space and time trapped in a transient bonding, not measured in acres or ages or in any known unit. It is the furthest we have reached, a breach into the future. We are exiles emerging from the past, never able to go back. But in our present, ever present, we move ever forward. Thank you. Okay, I know my voice is not as strong as Aaron's over here, but I do want you to listen, try if you can to listen to the poems that I do have today, because they are very much about Nelson. And so I wrote a whole collection of poems which I have here. And this collection of poems is called Full Nelson. For anybody that wants to know, that this collection is about the town of Nelson. And it's not only about Nelson, it's about what Nelson means to me, and it means to a lot of people that live here. So it really discusses a lot of Nelson's industrial history, its current, present, and it talks about a lot of what Nelson can be or could be in the future. If anybody wants to know about this book, please come and speak to me at the end, and I'll let you know a little bit more about it. So that first poem was the opening poem of my collection. It is called You Are Here. And I just want you to remind that to you all, that you are here today by coming to Nelson and supporting this culture. We are making a difference. Secondly, I would just want you to bring to attention this little thing. I say little, it's huge. Yeah, this little monument in front of us. So this monument, a lot of people think that it is a sewing needle. What it actually is, or a knitting needle, what it actually is a weaving shuttle. For anybody that knows what a weaving shuttle is, it's a small component for a loom machine, which is able to make cloths of various different patterns. And the reason that this is in Nelson Town Centre is because the loom and the weaving shuttle has a big impact on Nelson and what it is. So I wrote this poem for the weaving shuttle. That's what it's called. It's called The Weaving Shuttle. It is in my collection. You can find it in here. released and caught, the opposite of those who fish at shores. It floats like a boat, slides side to side, scuttles, shuffles back and forth like a wave from the hand of the queen. A single cotton bobbin unravels the loose thread of this town. The people pass easily through the eye of this thick needle, walking into lines into work, wielding yarns as long as yawns. As the day turns and the mills still turn, we wonder what looms in those looms still. Thank you. So that was my second poem from that. I will come back to this collection in a little while, but I'm just going to change up a little bit because I do write poetry in various styles. And a lot of people always ask me, one of the things that I do in my life is teach people how to write poetry, or I teach people the literary essence of poetry. And so I wrote this little poem about writing poetry. It's called How to Be a Poet. So if you are listening, you can take this with you and try to write your own little poem from it. First of all, you have to think thorough thoughts on the things you observe, then sorted findings into finely sought words until they sound a little like prose. Then you go and form a performance from them. Poet, don't forget your rhyming endings to make your lines sing. Employ a dictionary, get a gauge on your language baggage. Add some similes like metaphors and analogies, and maybe a meter for your milestones, or maybe not. For monotony is a bore. On genre, alliterate and sibilate. Show you are literate, not a sibilant for all literal purposes. Figure-eight wordsers. Defamiliarize verses with diminutives and performatives for a personal personality. Stamp your signature because onomatopoeia hums to sapient readers like homo on phonograph, or to both like by, and by also to sin and nymph and ant and ought or to. You ought to be precise or obvious, but never oblivious. Translations in the poet saying, from images to ideals, there are no rights to write, there are only the right to write. And lastly, if you know your word's worth, that to begin, your poetry would begin being. Thank you. So as our lovely host today, Navi, did tell everybody, I was at the end of last year approached by In Situ and Lancashire County Council, and I was asked to use my poetic and my creative abilities to write a poem for the town. And this poem was also fell in line with the World Poetry Day 2024. And one thing that I did was take the idea of the theme of World Poetry 2024, which was How I Love Thee, and I tried to write a poem about Nelson taking that idea. And so I sat with this poem for a long time. I sat with the idea and I tried to write it. And I was struggling at first, but then I asked my mum, I said, Mum, what does this town mean to you? What does Nelson mean to you? And my mum said something that was really quite profound. She said, you know what, Nelson is a really tight-knit community. And I really like that idea of being tight-knit. And so I was like, what can I do with this idea? And then I had this idea of like, using the industrial history that we have, and especially our wool and cotton industry, and making a jumper from it in the form of a poem. So that's what I did. I took that idea of a jumper and the town and I mixed them together. So I wrote this poem. It's called This Town is an Old Hand-Me-Down Sweater. This fleece was hand-shorn by a sheep herder's hands, whose flock roamed these dreamy Lancashire lands. At Lomisha Mill the process began, rolled into rovings, comb, carded and dyed, then spun into wool, the fibres crossed lengthwise. It was sold at Nelson Market, £1 a ball or a penny a yard, with a deep regard grandma knitted ours from a single yarn. We all wore it and accepted it as ours, a hand-me-down sweater we each made our own, insulating and warm, as snug as a home, as big as a town, a garment we could grow around. We took it to every street and to the playground. It grew as we grew, like a boundary. We pulled threads out to the edge of the foundry. My father wore it to the sheet metal factory. My brother wore it wild and free on nights to equinox. My mother tore it to rags whilst cleaning the sink, and my sister danced and mimed to Spice Girls in the mirror. I wore it too, its sleeves around my waist like an embrace, or draped on my back, both arms over my shoulders like a cape, or scrunched on the ground, a goalpost at play, or a picnic blanket on a warm summer's day. It was passed down to friends and neighbors too, who wore it through winters and made it through. Yes, it was made to endure, layered with care and love, shared around this town like a little song, a harmony where every voice belonged. Yes, this is our sweater, though it's frayed and bored with holes. Still, a tea-stained front mixed with whiskey and cream. Still, we worn it well to tatters and tears, tallies and tales. We've got some stories to tell. Still, we keep these threads as they unravel and restitch them new, a patchwork blanket of everyone we knew. So for those who travel or decide to stay, here's an old hand-me-down in the shades of Nelson Town. Thank you. So I won't take up much more of your time because I know you have some fantastic acts after me. So one thing, I will give you my final poem of the night, and this is one of my favorite poems that I've ever written. And I wrote it for somebody called the Super Slow Way. And I don't know if anybody knows who the Super Slow Way are. They are a charity that looks after the canals from Blackburn all the way to Barrowford. And they do a lot of great work with the canals. And I think they get a lot of their funding from the Canal and River Trust. So I tried to put these two ideas together, and I wrote a poem for them. It's called Be Like the River. From the mountain top, catch that downpour and flow gently down. Don't stop, you can't stop. Follow the pines as they rise along rich valleys and climb over hills and slip down again by the city where people will gladly pull pails of water from your side. Be like the river and give as a giver. For the water taken doesn't take, and the loss is again, and the waters will come back to fill you, full of feeling. So like the river, go forth fulfilled and run out into the open, alongside countryside, giving water to all you pass, and follow yourself to the place that you dam, and overflow into a pool or a lake, and lay still in winter freeze, and melt warm in summer heat, and move fiercely in spring, sprung like flowers and ferns on the left bank. Be like the river where men make camp and children play and splash in the waters, and women wade out to fish the fish, and to catch the trout, and to sift the gold out of the wet folds of earth beneath you, your golden bed. Be like the river where the deer come silently for their morning waters, and where wary foxes arrive deep in the night scavenging, and where swallows dip mid-flight to quench their thirst, and wait still as the lions approach and crouch to lap bloody tongues at your surface with purpose. Be like the river, and when you cry, cry into yourself, and when you overflow, let others drink, and when you are heavy with sediment, that of yourself and that of others, you will know strength, and still you will flow, still with force, out to the sea, out to the ocean, and back to the source. Be like the river. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I have been Ajaz Qureshi. You can find me online and any social media at Sincere Intentions if you like. If anybody wants to come and speak about my book, I'll be floating around. Thank you very much. And then I hand over to Navi.
Thank you very much, Ajaz Qureshi. That was brilliant. So before we announce the next performers, I just want to give a shout out to the Young Makers Market. This is particularly important. The vibrancy and future of Nelson depends on businesses, entrepreneurship. Now these are young independent business owners. They're under the age of 25. And please do show your support to them. Go and visit their stall, even if you're walking past, to show your encouragement. And they are Laiba, who's going to be doing the henna. We've got Zara also is doing the henna. We've got somebody called Mahek. She's doing the cakes, and as well as other bakes further down that way. There's also Ebony, who will be doing the prints, stickers, and keychains. And yes, so please do support them. It's really important as well.
I hope I recorded it.
We've not touched it.